Hi, I'm Yamo. Today I'm going to teach you how to not go broke trying to invest from Nigeria.
Hi, Yamo. Welcome to Don't Go Broke Trying. Really happy to have you here. I am very excited for this conversation because a lot of my followers are in Nigeria and they want to know how to invest in the stock market. So we're going to get into that in detail today. But before we do that, let's get to know you a bit. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do?
Okay, so hi, I'm Yamo. I'm the co-founder of Bamboo and the chief operating officer. So in my role, that means I lead growth and operations at Bamboo. Bamboo is an online brokerage service, so we give Africans across the world access to global investment options. So US stocks, Nigerian stocks, savings, in both Naira and dollars, treasury bills, different investment options from the comfort of your phone. So it's just an app. You can easily download it and get investing.
Okay, cool. I am again based in Canada, but I tell all my Nigerian followers to just download Bamboo because I've seen the UX top tier. So, great job with what you guys are doing, and we'll get into how you started that. But before that, I always like to get to know you as a person and understand your story a bit. So let's go all the way back to the beginning and learn a little bit about where you started. So, could you talk about how you grew up and if you remember what your earliest memory of money was?
Hmm. So I think I grew up pretty normally, like, just like really basic, very conventional childhood. I have an older brother and a little sister. Grew up in Nigeria all my life, went to the same school actually for most of my life. So I went to Grange in Ikeja from like when I was 5 till I was like 16 years old. So
Oh wow.
reception, primary, it's like literally primary school and secondary school, moved to the UK where I did like A level, sixth form, and then to university where I studied chemical engineering. But I knew I didn't like it. Like I was pretty certain I didn't want to be a chemical engineer
Yeah.
quite quickly. And then, was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I mean, there's a more of a career journey, but then we ended up at Bamboo. But I think I've always, well, not maybe not always, but for a very long time, I've known that money was important to me because money was in my head how you got things, right? So it wasn't so much the money as much as you needed money to get like the nice stuff that you wanted. So
Yeah.
I think even as a child, even growing up, it was always quite clear that money bought things. We never ever were under this impression that things just appeared out of
Yes.
nowhere or
Mhm.
so even like around Christmas my mom is huge on gifting and huge on like giving gifts. Even for us the kids, presents didn't just appear as like, oh, from Yamo. No, we got like a little money, pocket money, and then me and my sister would have to go into the store and figure out, okay, what are we getting for the different people and how
Ah,
are we splitting that up,
nice.
how are we budgeting for that, and okay, what can you afford to get? And even, when I was young and I wanted stuff, it was very much around, okay, well, this is your budget and it's up to you to figure out what you can get. So yeah.
I love that. I feel like you grew up middle class. Is that how I could categorize it?
Yeah,
Upper
I
middle
guess.
class. Yeah,
Yeah.
right? But the fact that your parents still were, like, conscious of money and you were very aware of money, I feel like it's actually a good thing because most kids, who grew up middle class, like, I would say I did as well, sometimes we just think money appears and things just appear. So it's good that you had some awareness of it. So you said you went to school for chemical engineering,
Yeah.
but somehow you ended up co-founding a money-related company. So can you tell us how that happened?
So I think the first thing is it's not that rare. If you know a lot of engineers, like especially if you know like chemical engineers, engineers across the board, I feel like a good proportion end up in finance for some reason or the other. But so I was doing chemical engineering and I knew I didn't like it. Like I knew I didn't want to be an engineer. I was
Yeah.
at Imperial in London. But like I always say, I have Nigerian parents who are paying my school fees, so like not finishing was not one of the available options.
Fair enough.
So I finished my degree, even got a master's.
Oh,
So did
wow.
the whole shebang. But I also didn't like London at all. So I lived in London at the time, really hated it. And so wanted to move back. And I just thought I was gonna move back for a short breather, do NYSC, sort of figure out what I wanted to do. And so at the time, well, I was thinking about what to do when I moved back. My mom encouraged me to do NYSC in the civil service, so like actually do it properly. So I spent the year and a bit working with the Minister of Power Works and Housing at the
Okay.
time. And so that was like an infrastructure ministry is the best way to think about it. But and so I realized, okay, this is interesting. I quite like infrastructure, how things get built, but I don't like the whole government's working in government kind of thing. So I tried to start looking around for infrastructure type jobs. And in doing that, I ended up working at a infrastructure private equity firm called
Okay.
AIM. But I had no like finance knowledge. I knew nothing about finance. I just studied, prepped everything for my interview, got the job, and then also started studying. So I started studying for the CFA. And so
Oh,
I did
that's
the
hard.
CFA.
That's not easy at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, I
You're like
started.
you're like, yeah, I don't want to do chemical engineering. Let me do the the hardest exam ever.
Yeah, I do the most sometimes. So I started studying for my CFA. And then, so I did level one and level two while I was at AIM. And, you start getting interested in finance. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Want to know more, want to learn a little bit more. And so once I started doing that, I, bought like a few Nigerian mutual funds, and then I was interested in investing in the US stock market. And then you ask around for where you can do it, and there just wasn't a way that was like easy to access and also affordable for me at the time. And also because you're Nigerian with a Nigerian, I have like Nigerian ID. A lot of places don't even want to onboard Nigerian. So there's
Yeah.
that hiccup. And so around that time, I started speaking to my friend who's now my co-founder about it. It was like, oh, he also had the same problem and he was working on it. And I was very much like, okay, great, that sounds great. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to be one of your first customers. I was not interested in doing a startup and being an entrepreneur. Actually, at the time, if you asked me what I wanted to be, the only thing I was certain I didn't want to be was an entrepreneur.
You are.
But we just kept in touch. We have mutual friends, kept talking about it. And yeah, here we are. Very rarely he was asked me one day if I wanted to be his co-founder, and I'm
So
relatively
yeah.
impulsive.
Mm.
So I said yes, and the rest is history. But I did go on and finish my CFA. I think that's important to mention. So if anyone is doing it, plug it out. There's three
Yeah.
levels.
And it's hard, and the pass rate is not very high as well. So I feel like it's pretty impressive that you did your CFA, and now you're also an entrepreneur. And I feel like a lot of Nigerians can probably relate to you saying that you were trying to find a way to invest outside of Nigeria, but you couldn't really. Because I think what how did people what was the option? Was it you had to be ultra rich to be able to access those, or what was the option back then?
Yeah, you would essentially have to have the access, one, and be like really rich, or and then have access to a broker abroad. So
Okay.
even like a lot of the firms, when you did get the access, it wouldn't be direct. So the broker abroad would be doing the trade. So there was a time lag, etc. Versus now where people are used to trading at the exact at the similar prices or even the exact same prices that people in the US are trading at.
Okay. And I know you didn't really want to become a co-founder, but here you are today. So, is there something that made you realize that, okay, I need to build something better than what is currently available to us? Like, was there a certain light bulb moment that happened?
Um,
Or was it your
it just
co-founder, I
didn't
guess?
ex- it just didn't exist,
Okay.
right? So it wasn't even like, oh, there was an option I didn't like it. It just was this didn't exist and it's a need that people have. Well, not
Mm,
even people, it's a need that I had.
yeah.
And like in terms of working on it, a lot of the thinking was also why not?
Mm.
In terms of why like this is something I need, this is something I would use, and the bet is that there's multiple other people that need it and would use it and would figure it out. So going into it, my thinking was very much why not? And I wanted to go to business school at the time, actually. I was thinking about going
More
to business.
school.
I just had no idea what I was supposed to do with my life. So
Yeah.
I was thinking about going to business school at the time, and business school is expensive.
Hmm.
And so in my head, I was like, okay, if this doesn't work out, then you'll probably learn like similar stuff as you learn in business school. So it's like a worst case scenario, you'll be fine.
I love it. I feel like most of the best entrepreneurs are trying to fill a gap that they have in their life and they're trying to fill it and they realize that if I have this gap a lot of other people have this gap as well. I feel like that's how I learned that's how I started content creating. Like I was looking for a black woman teach me about financial literacy topics in Canada. Nobody existed, like non-existent. So I'm glad that I started and filled the gap and glad that you started too. So from your conversation with your co-founder, what was the process like of actually building the business? Like Was there a lot of red tape, or how did you guys break into this market, which pretty much didn't exist at that time?
Richmond, that's my co-founder, started working on it, first. So like I mentioned,
Okay.
my first energy wasn't like, yay, and be a co-founder. It was very much like, sounds good. Let me know when this is done. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be your first user. He started working on it first. Key thing in terms of trying to build this is figuring out regulation, right?
Mm,
Because there's a reason that it didn't exist. And part of that was, KYC. So we had to figure out all the regulation, find a broker in the US that would be willing to onboard Nigerians at scale so that it could scale. Then also there was the regulatory piece in Nigeria where you had to get Nigerian regulators comfortable around like what you were doing and how it was going to work. So a big part of what we had to do was just educating regulators on both sides. And then obviously there's the building of the app itself. Like you have this idea in your head, but how do you build it with, the resource constraints that one has at the time? And then just going from there, like, now the app is ready, acquiring users, managing the fact that Nigeria is a low trust society, one, just because there have been different things that happen to people and their finances, but then you're also doing like US stocks, that's what we started with, which can seem very complicated. And like I'm sure financial terms in general often seem very complicated. And so having to figure out customer acquisition at the same time as customer education and financial education and building brand trust was
a lot.
is really thing for us.
Yeah. I love what you said about Nigeria being a low trust society because that's definitely the case. Anytime I tell people, okay, invest using Bamboo or invest using some app, they're like, how do I know they're not going to run away with my money? That's the first
Yeah.
thing they ask. But in Canada, I feel like if I tell somebody that they're going to like use this app, nobody's ever asking me if there's someone's going to run away with their money because they know that obviously the system is going to protect them. So I kind of want to pivot into, okay, there's somebody listening, they have no knowledge about investing. How would they get into the stock market? So let's start off with if someone's just figuring out their money game, is there anything that you think they should know before they even start investing? Like, do they need to have a certain amount of money saved? Do they need an emergency fund? Where would you tell somebody to start that has no knowledge of money right now?
So if you want to start investing and you've decided, okay, what I want to start investing in the US stock market, I think the most important thing I think it's important to figure out is how much you want to invest first. It doesn't need to be a lot of money. It doesn't need to be, there's no set amount because there's a big saying about the best time to invest, sorry, was yesterday, the next best time is now. Just so yeah, there's no set amount, but just know like exactly how much it is that you want to invest and then invest it. Like don't spend too much time. Don't just at least make that deposit so that you've at least done it.
Yeah.
Because what I found is that at least for me, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, I want to invest, I want to invest, I want to invest. And like months can go by with you thinking, I actually want to
Yeah.
invest. You never actually take that step. So actually making your deposits is sort of a forcing function that forces you to actually take the step. And then in terms of what to invest in and like what to do next. If you already know that you want to invest in the US stock market, then it's important to think about if you know what type of stuff you want to invest in. So if there's a company you care about, so if you let's say you care about Apple or you care about Amazon or Nvidia, then yeah, you can definitely just invest in that. On Bamboo, we have something called a managed portfolio, which has help people answer that question of, oh, I don't know what to buy. And so we've teamed up with US licensed fund managers. And so they manage the assets in that portfolio. So if you're on Bamboo, you can literally just decide, okay, I'm just going to put my money in this portfolio and let the fund managers do the investing for me. Or for someone like me, when I first started investing, what I did was I just bought something called the S&P 500. And for like people who don't know what that is, it's a fund that you can buy on the US stock market. And so the one I bought was called VOO, VOO. And you can just even search for it on something like Bamboo for something called VOO. And what that does, the fund, the S&P 500 essentially allows you just say you want to invest in the US stock market. So, when you're listening to the news sometimes or you're listening to information and you hear people say, oh, the market is up, the market is down, and it's like, "Ah, which markets? What company are they talking about?"
Yes.
They're usually talking about the S&P 500 because that's like a fund that is the top 500 companies in the US. And so it sort of represents the market, so the biggest 500 companies in the market. So if you invest in this fund, then you sort of own a little bit of all those big companies. So those are the things. So yeah, if you really know nothing and you're really trying to figure out, you can just invest in a managed portfolio, or like what I did, because we didn't have a managed portfolio at the time, was I just invested in S&P 500. But
Okay.
yeah, get started. I think that's the most important thing I'll say.
Yeah. So let's break it down even into even more baby steps because again, these people listening may not know anything about investing. So I like what you said, but let's break it down even more granular for them. So
Okay.
first thing, fund your accounts. I hear you because I think analysis paralysis kind of gets people to think, okay, I'm going to invest, I'm going to invest, I'm going to guess. And as you said, months will go by, no investments have been made, the market is going up, your money is staying or losing value, right? So for those who are living and working in Nigeria, do you think they should be saving their money in Naira or in dollars, or does it not matter? They should just be saving enough to start investing. What is your suggestion?
I think it's very dependent. So I'm very like wary about giving people financial advice because everything is very dependent on you and your situation and
Yeah.
what future expenses you have. So if like a lot of your future expenses, for example, might be dollar based, then it might make sense to be saving so that in dollars so that you're sure that you can meet those obligations. If you have a lot of naira obligations, especially if they're short term, it might make sense for you to be saving in naira because you just don't want to be exposed to exchange rates and like the different spreads. So it's very, very dependent for you. But I say that the most important thing is share whatever you're doing, be saving and
Yes.
be investing whatever currency the money is in. Let it be growing.
Yes.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. So put some money aside,
Yeah. No,
whether Naira or dollars, put it
yeah,
aside.
and I think it's also important for people, and I say this for myself, I'm like the biggest lesson I'm always trying to tell myself to actually know how much money they spend because I'm so guilty of that where like I know how much money I have or spend from when I see like my bank account and my alerts, and there's no sense of tracking. So it's
Yeah.
always good for us to start trying to track because then that helps okay, if I earn X, I can afford to save Y and
Yeah.
invest, B, so that you also are not in that habit of always touching your savings.
Yes,
Because,
yes. That's so true. I always tell people that before you even start investing, let's start tracking our expenses. Let's start tracking our income because a lot of people don't they know how much they make typically, but they don't know how much they're spending. And oftentimes you're spending almost as much as you are making. And in that case, if that is true, then you could, if you start trying to save, let's say 10K or 20K every month, you may have to keep pulling from those savings because you're kind of over saving based on your income level and your expenses. So I think that's a great first step. Okay, so let's say now you have your money set aside, you're ready, you have a good handle on your monthly expenses. What is next? So let's say I am a person living in Nigeria, I have 50K saved. How do I start investing? Can you walk me through step by step? And maybe start
okay,
off with like opening the brokerage account as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So step one, just open your account. So whatever phone you have, whatever device on your App Store or Google Play Store, download Bamboo. So that's the first one. And then make an account, sign up. Be very, very, very quick.
What information would someone need to set up their account?
It varies slightly by what country you are. That's like what I do, what KYC, what ID verification we take from you. But essentially, we'll need like your basic personal information, like your name, age, identifier information. We'll need to do some KYC, so that will require some sort of verification. If you're in Nigeria, it'll be your BVN. If you're in Ghana or South Africa, it'll be another form of government ID, just
Okay.
to verify that you are who you say you are. We might also ask you for a bank account number. Again, it's just for verification. That doesn't have to be the accounts you deposit or withdraw into. And then if you're opening a US brokerage account, we will ask you for information about like your investment practices. So this is information we have to collect from like a US regulatory point of view. So like typically generally how much money you make, what industry you work in, where you are on like how much you know about investing. So are you new to investing? Are you a seasoned investor? So just basic get to know the customer KYC information to log in, but it takes about 5-10 minutes
Okay.
to fill the whole form and get signed up. So that's very, very quick. And then you can make a deposit. you can make a deposit in your local currency. So if you have 50,000 Naira in there, you can decide, okay, you're going to make that deposit in Naira, and we will do the conversion for you. We'll show you what the exchange rates is very, very simply on the app, and you can immediately invest it in like a USD wallet, or you can actually make your deposits in Naira and leave it on the app in Naira, because we have Naira investment options. So we're that. So you've made your deposit. It's instant actually. So if you make a deposit, you're able to use it immediately. So yeah, welcome to Bamboo. And then the next thing is deciding what you want to invest in. There's a Naira savings option, so that you can just save in Naira, watch that money grow, put it aside towards something. And we also have a Naira Treasury Bills option. The key difference between the two is that savings are, a very, very a clear set rate and depending. And Treasury Bills are it's like you're borrowing money to the government. So that rate changes every week depending on how much the government is willing to take money from people every week. But the same thing where you lock the money for 3 months or for 6 months or for a year, and you get different interest rates. It's really basic. On the other side, if you're a team, I want to invest in USD, I want to invest in dollars, and you've already decided, okay, I want to invest in dollars and I want to invest in the US stock market, then you essentially have two options. One, you just invest directly in the Bamboo managed portfolio. You don't have to think about it. An investment professional will be doing the investing for you, and you'll just be seeing the return. No thoughts, it doesn't matter, you're good to go. Then on the other hand, if I want to invest in US stock market, but I want to do it myself, then you just select what company or companies you want to invest in. So you can pick, like I said, all the Apples, the Google, or you can say, okay, I want to invest in the S&P 500. So take like general exposure. And finally, if you're a USD investor, sure, and you say, okay, I want to invest in dollars, but I don't want anything to do with stocks because that's a bit risky. We also have a fixed return thing where you can just put your money and invest in a fixed return portfolio where you get an 8% interest per year on the dollars that you lock. Again, no thoughts. You just put the money at the end of the year. We'll give you your 8% plus your money back. Or you can also lock it for shorter periods. And obviously the interest rates will depend. But yeah, was that clear? I don't know.
Yes.
I feel like
Yes, that was
that's
very clear. Thank you. Yeah. So if I recap for everybody, first step is that you're going to open your brokerage account. I'll leave a link to Bamboo in the show notes. Download Bamboo. Second step would be, well, I guess when you fund your account, when you are opening your account, you first have to do all the KYC, which is know your client stuff. So your name, your BVN, and other details that Bamboo would ask you for. Second step would be just to fund your account. So we want to connect either your Naira account or your USD wallet so that we can now fund the account. And then third step would be basically decide what you want to invest in. Do you want to invest in stocks, ETFs? Do you want to have a portfolio manager manage it for you? Or do you want to go a bit safer and go with like a treasury bill or some kind of fixed income asset? So those are the options. Did I recap that nicely?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I mentioned you can also do Nigerian stocks, but yeah, there's that.
Okay. So people have access to both US stocks and Nigerian stocks, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess for everyone, step 4 would just be to monitor the growth of your portfolio. So you can see how your stocks, ETFs, or other assets are performing in your Bamboo account. And you can just monitor from there. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So when it comes to opening a brokerage account, we've mentioned earlier that Nigerians have very low trust of the system. So, and maybe for good reason, right? There may not be all the regulations in place that they know of to protect them if their money goes up. So what measures are put in place to avoid our money just disappearing if we decide to invest with Bamboo?
So that's a great question. The first thing I always say is that we're regulated. So we're not just, this app that popped up out of nowhere. We're regulated both in the US and in Nigeria as well. We're, also even regulated in Canada actually, but for our Missan product,
Oh,
our Missan
yes.
remittance product. But yeah, so we're regulated everywhere, and we're backed by international investors. But beyond just like trusting us and trusting regulation, every US stock brokerage account opened on Bamboo is insured up to $500,000 by the US SIPC,
Okay.
and wallet balances are also um, insured by the FDIC. I'm trying to like remember the exact acronym, by the
Yeah.
FDIC. So we're regulated. We have, bank level security, but there's also insurance provided by, regulators that doesn't require you to trust us or ever not. So I think those are the key things.
Yeah. So basically, for those who may not understand, your money is safe. Basically, long
Yeah.
story short, if bamboo, obviously nothing will happen. But let's say something did occur, your money is insured and protected, so that nobody will be able. Your money will not disappear. Basically, again, Nigerians can be a bit low trust. So why do you think that Nigerians trusted you, and what did you have to do to earn that trust? Was it more educating people that you are regulated, or was there anything else specific that you had to do?
I think the first thing is time. I
Okay.
think, one thing about trust in general is that, the longer you're alive, then the less likely that people continue thinking that you're going to die or like run away. So that's
True.
one. I think we also had to be very intentional about like the stuff that we did to help with the brand trust. So responding to people in a timely manner when they had an issue, helping people feel like they were solving the issue. I think even putting like a human face to the business,
Yeah.
was helpful. Making sure that when people are trying to do a withdrawal, it happens very, very quickly so that, people don't get
Yeah.
nervous. But I think it's little stuff that compounds over time versus one big, yeah, trust us,
Yeah. Okay.
banner.
That makes sense. Okay, so the next step was actually funding the account after we've opened our brokerage. So realistically, is there a certain amount that somebody needs to start investing with Bamboo? Let's say I want to invest in the US and that share that I want to buy of a company is $250, but I only have, let's say, 50K to start right now. Can I start investing? Do you have fractional investing, or do I need to save until I can afford to buy that $250 stock?
No, so on Bamboo, we have fractional investing. So you
Okay.
can invest whatever amounts you have in whatever you want to invest in.
Okay.
So if you have 50K, you can buy 50K of a stock. That's fine.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so now their accounts are funded. Should I know you're not going to be giving us financial advice, but the question that I asked my audience what they want to hear from you, and they said they want to know if they should be buying US stocks versus Nigerian stocks and why. So maybe you can give some pros and cons of investing in the Nigerian stock market versus the US stock market, because I know you have access to both via Bamboo.
Yeah. I think again it really depends. That's why I know like I know it sounds, but it really depends on what you do and what you know, and what you personally want to be invested in. Um, I'm trying to think what like in terms of like pros and cons. I think the biggest pro of the US stock market compared to the Nigerian stock market is that you probably have more visibility because it's like a very liquid market, it's a very big market. There's a lot of news, there's a lot of information about the market. But with the Nigerian stock market, there's probably less news, less information. It's a smaller but it's a less liquid market.
Yeah.
But in terms of let's say Nigerian stock market, people are making like really big, really good gains recently in the Nigerian stock market. The dividend yields are quite good in, some stocks in the Nigerian stock market. So it really depends on you and what your goals are and also, what you know.
Yeah.
Because if you're investing in the Nigerian stock market, you're very likely going to be like single stock picking. So obviously, if you know what the great stocks to invest in, that's great for you.
Yes, great point. I think from my point of view, if I could share mine, I feel like the Nigerian stock market has a lot of growth potential, and you'll see companies that do extremely well in like a year. Like the growth potential can be great, but as you said, you're usually picking individual stocks rather than doing an ETF, which means that you are trusting in this one company to do well. And I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people don't do their fundamental analysis enough to actually be choosing individual stocks, which is why I often tell people maybe we start with the US, ETFs, instead of just doing one individual stock. And I also think maybe the devaluation of the Naira is a concern, because if you're investing in the Nigerian stock market, you may be investing in Naira. I'm guessing you have to
Mhm.
invest in Naira, right? So in that case, if yes, you may see a lot of growth, but if your Naira is depreciating at the same time, is it true
Yeah.
growth? Yeah. So I think that's my concern. I think with the US stock market, as you said, it's very liquid. So you can take your cash out pretty much instantly, I would say. And it's also a much bigger market. Even us in Canada, we don't, most of us avoid the Canadian stock market and choose to invest in the US stock market. So I love that Bamboo's at least giving people access to the US stock market if they do choose to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last up was buying your stock or ETF. I know that you mentioned earlier that you would suggest the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies in the US. I personally invest in this and I have done every 2 weeks for the past 3 years. So I'll echo, yeah, I'll echo that. Every time I get paid, I put a certain amount towards the S&P 500. So I would encourage everybody to do like that would be a great starting point, or looking at other ETFs as well. Are there lots of different ETFs available on Bamboo?
Oh yeah, so we have essentially, if you can buy, if it's exchange listed, so that's if it's on the US stock exchange, then you probably can buy it
Okay.
on Bamboo. If you can't find it, then you can actually always message our customer experience team and we might be able to add it
Oh,
on
okay.
for you
Nice.
as a general.
Oh, cool, cool. Okay. And can a Nigerian who is located in a Western country, let's say they moved to Canada, can I still, and let's say I was investing with Bamboo prior to moving, can I still continue to invest with Bamboo while I'm in Canada?
Yeah, you can as long as you can like get on board, then yeah, you can.
Okay, cool. Now, I know you recently launched a new feature called Managed Portfolio. Could you just break it down in very simple terms what that actually means for people who may not want to buy their own stocks and ETFs?
Yeah, essentially, I think I tried to like expand on that a little bit earlier, but it's literally just that. It's I want to invest in the US stock market. I don't know what to buy. I don't even want to buy the S&P 500. I just want to give you money, invest in the US stock market for me and help me make my money back. And that's literally what Managed Portfolio does. It's a portfolio that's managed by US licensed asset managers,
Okay.
and they invest and they manage your whole portfolio for you. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do any thinking beyond like making your deposits, watching it, and taking draws if you want to.
Okay, so you mentioned that this portfolio is expertly managed by portfolio managers who are US licensed. So
Yeah.
why was it important to partner with, or who is managing it? I guess you could, if you could share a bit about that.
Yeah, so we're partnered with the a company called Xantos Labs,
Okay.
and they're like I said, a licensed US licensed fund manager. And for us, it was important to partner with people that were licensed because, like you mentioned, you know, not just for the trust, but just so that you feel comfortable giving people your money, right? Because if I came up to you and I said, "Oh, give me your money to invest," and you didn't know me, the
Yeah,
first question is, why should I trust you? Like, why do I know that you know what you're talking about?
fair
And
enough.
so that was important for us, trust that they were licensed, that they actually knew what they was talking about and had a record of getting good returns. And so, yeah.
Okay. And could you walk us a bit through the strategy behind the fund? Like I read online that it says it's targeting the S&P 500 without downside protection. Again, some people may not know what that really means. So could you explain what that means for people?
So essentially, the strategy for the fund is one where we're trying to like protect downside protect. So what that means most of in life actually is that risk and return are usually on par. The higher returns people promise you, more often than not, that also implies that there's similarly high risk. And so what we're doing with this fund is that we're managing both risk and managing return, where we're trying to make sure that you don't lose that, on the downside, there's not a lot of risk in the fund, and so we're trying to like track the market, so around the S&P 500, so that you can do around those kind of returns or even slightly better than the general market without too much risk. But the strategy is definitely not one where we're saying, "Oh, you're going to get 500%."
Yes. And if anyone promises you 500%, guys, they're probably scamming you as well.
I mean,
Yes. Okay. And I guess how are the fees structured within the portfolio, and how do you make sure they stay affordable for people?
so there's just a small transaction fee you pay when you make a deposit into the portfolio, about 0.5%, I believe, when you
Okay.
make a deposit into the portfolio. And then the managers of the portfolio charge a 1% management fee over a year. And so that's prorated. So you pay about 0.25% every quarter
Okay.
on amount that you have invested. So let's say you had $100 that you had put into the fund. You would first of all have paid 50 cents, that's 0.5% to Bamboo when you were putting into the fund, and then you would have about 99.50, and then over the course of a year you would pay a nearly $1 fee over the year. So you'd be paying about 25 cents every quarter to
Okay.
make it up.
Okay, makes sense. And I love that's transparent for everyone so they know exactly what they're paying. Who would you say that this tool is not for? Like, who should maybe just keep managing their own portfolio?
Definitely for someone who has like high risk tolerance and is also targeting high um returns, like very high returns, I think, this wouldn't be the best portfolio for you. And people who do want the flexibility of individual stock selection, right? Because if you are actually that type of person who likes to actually say, I want to buy this and I want to buy that, and I want to like actively invest in specific things, then this probably isn't for you because you already know what you want to invest in. I think this is perfect though for people who know that they want to invest in the markets, but they don't want to be making the investment decisions. So if you do want to invest in US stock markets and what is stopping you today is that you can't answer the question of what do I buy, then this is perfect for you because you don't have to do anything. You just have to invest and
Yeah.
make money.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I totally agree. I always tell people that if you are having analysis paralysis and the difference between you investing or not investing is just paying someone to do it for you, please just go through with that managed portfolio because it will help you get into the market, start seeing some growth, and it's way better than just having your money grow sitting in a savings account going forward. Okay, just a few more questions as we wrap up here. Is bamboo currently, I know it's available in Nigeria, Ghana, and I believe you mentioned South Africa. Is it
Yeah.
also available in any other African countries, or do you have any plans to extend it to other African countries?
So we're just in these countries today, and just clarifying that. So that means we're open to people who are citizens or have government ID from these countries,
Okay.
so that you're able to like get on board and get onboarded, in general. And that's the key place. It's into Nigeria. So if you're in Nigeria, if you're in Ghana, you're in South Africa. But if you live in Nigeria, for example, and you're not Nigerian, but you have your Nigerian BVN, you still can get on board Bamboo, just to make clear. So yeah, that's where we currently are today. But I mean, if there's people listening from other countries that want that, think it'll be good to come there, then it'll be good to hear.
Yeah. let, let her know if you guys want her to come to your country. What advice would you give someone who's just still very scared about investing? Like, do you have any success stories or testimonials of what you've seen from a bamboo user?
I think advice I always say is start. I know I said that earlier, but just start, even if it's like an amount you think is really, really small, just start because, you're able to get started. We have, loads of examples of people who have used Bamboo. I can even start with even myself because I wasn't the most avid investor when I started investing Bamboo. I just wanted to invest a little bit for something. I'm not the person who is like great with money at all. Like half this information about track your spending is, advice I even gave myself as of last week. I was literally like, okay, okay, next paycheck, you need to track it. So I'm not even that person. But starting and being consistent has really helped me make money and help me build an investment portfolio, even when things don't seem that exciting. And has actually helped me make money. Like I've doubled my money in companies like Facebook and from investments I made less than 2 years ago. Earlier ones have done well, have even done better. And it's interesting because I remember when I was thinking about investing, I wanted to invest around 2022 when the market was down. But again, I just got stuck in this like analysis paralysis loop where I was saying, okay, I really want to invest, but I don't know what to invest in, and I can't figure out what is good to invest in right now. And the whole market is down. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna wait till it starts going back up. So I'm going to time it and know the perfect time,
Yes.
etc. And I just didn't do anything, literally anything about it. And then I remember like getting like a wake up like a few months later in 2023. And that was because we started getting the news about all these companies that have rebounded from the lows. And then I started like beating myself up that, wow, I would have made X amount of money. And then I was about getting to the same loop again of, oh, already missed the boat. And I
Yeah.
remember I was telling a friend of mine at the time, and he was like, look, just invest. It doesn't matter. Just, stagger it and just, put it over in these stocks. And I did it like once a month. I started just doing it once a month from there without thinking about it. And of those stocks where I had felt like, oh, I've missed the boat, etc., that's the portfolio that I've like almost doubled time
Nice.
frame. And
Yeah.
that wouldn't have happened if I got
Kept trying to
stuck
time the
and
market.
like I kept feeling. So there isn't like a perfect time. I think that's one thing I always tell people. There's no perfect time. It's just starting and being consistent and also not getting shook, quote unquote, when the market, is down.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I love that the lessons that you share here are very applicable to everywhere around the world, right? And I love that Bamboo is really democratizing investing. As you said, the best time to start was, yeah, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. But the second best time to start is right now. So
Yep.
if you are listening, use Yamo's testimony as an example of why you should start investing right now. Download Bamboo, it's in the show notes. How can people learn more about Bamboo and start their investing journey if they would like to?
Follow us on across social media at Invest Bamboo. We also have a WhatsApp channel. I think we'll share the link so that you can share it with people as well. And then once you download the app and get signed on, we also send you like a bunch of resources so you can learn about us, learn about Bamboo, and also check out our YouTube, where we also put out more informational content for people.
Awesome. Well, Yamo, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I hope that
Thank
you enjoyed
you.
it. And I hope everyone listening also enjoyed it and learned a lot. If there are any final words that you would like to leave with everyone, feel free to share them now. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was fun, and hope everyone found this useful and educational. And yeah, just get started in whatever
Absolutely.
little way you can. There's nothing too small. Just getting started is most important. And happy
Yes.
investing.
Yes, happy investing, everyone. I hope this encouraged you to get started. If it does, tag us on Instagram, tag Bamboo, tag me, and tag the podcast so that we can hear your testimonies about how this episode got you to start investing in the stock market. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.